I'm not too bad, thank you.
So, looking at some of these stories, a community activist has spoken on prime time in recent days about suffering at the hands of one of Cork's most infamous stalkers. Now, I know he did bring in stalking legislation recently because I remember speaking to Una Ring, I think it was, at the time, who's also from Cork, from what I remember, going back a couple of years ago. But, I mean, this is a very serious situation.
Yeah, so in many ways, 43-year-old Sonia Egan of the Lawn, Liscara, Killeens in Cork, she was like the leading lady in her own self-made soap opera. Unfortunately, Laura O'Connell was one of the people who had the misfortune of meeting her, and her life was changed forever as a result of it. So tragically, a number of the people who entered Sonia's life it was like they had these supporting roles forced on them through false, devastating, and in some cases career-ending accusations.
Oh,
So
God.
you might say this was even a soap opera with high production values. Laura O'Connell, who fell victim to, as I said, to Sonia's unmerciful harassment and spoke to Miriam O'Callaghan on primetime last week, told of how during one of their early encounters in 2018, she met her for coffee in a bar, and she was actually, Sonia was sporting barrister's robes, which would be like the equivalent of a GP eating out in a restaurant with the stethoscope around their neck. You know
Wow.
there's
Right.
something up. So Laura had met Sonia when she was taking part in a local activist issue, and this was when Sonia claimed she was a legal professional. It beggars belief when you think of how much time and energy must have gone into tasks like sourcing barristers' gowns, creating aliases, and contacting Tusla with complaints. So since that day that they met, Laura was plunged into a nightmare and found herself plagued by bizarre and devastating false rumours that alluded to everything from her running a paedophile ring, which of course was untrue, to reports of an endless stream of gentlemen callers to her door. Now, I spoke to Laura before, and she was telling me that she just had to just batten down the hatches. She couldn't, her friends were getting on to her, asking her to go places, and they eventually stopped because she couldn't go outside her door. And how do you explain to somebody that this is happening? You must
And
feel so
and it's
alone in
terrible.
a
And it's
situation
terrible
like
when
this.
when accusations like that, completely untrue accusations, are being made. Because unfortunately, the silly members in society who will come up with this idea, oh, there's no smoke and no fire, which was completely untrue, obviously. But I mean, for somebody to make very serious accusations against somebody, it's just horrendous. I mean, because your character is something that you have from the day you're born, and you protect it with all your might.
Oh, it's all you have. And false complaints were also made to Tusla, as I said, but the most chilling detail Laura mentioned of her experience was when Gardaí asked her to identify a photograph. So she looked at the photograph and she said, "Oh yes, that's the social worker that came to my house."
Hmm.
And they said, "No, that person isn't a social worker." So it seems like Sonia um, wasn't acting on her own, and it's kind of frightening
It's like a
when you
group
think of
effort.
being
Yeah.
in Laura's situation, because these people, they've no shortage of followers, I noticed. But
Hmm.
imagine speaking to somebody after an incident like that, and you've no idea who you can trust. And I think God, Laura must be one of the most courageous people I've interviewed in a long time, because she's the only one who waived her anonymity in court in court, bar one other male. So there was recently there was 9 people in court who were affected, and she received a jail sentence for that. And
Mm.
Laura actually came along to support them, and I think that's really strong of her, considering that there was a lot of people who turned against Laura, and she's still out there to help other people because she knows the devastation it's caused these are people, and they say that about sticks and stones break my bones, but words won't hurt me. But these words just
That's
resulted
horrendous,
in the
isn't it?
destruction of some people's lives.
I mean, it was almost like she was some sort of Walter Mitty. I mean, living so many lives to try and, fool people and get more victims. I mean, it's incredible, isn't it?
It's just untold damage, and I think of there's so many people who are so afraid of being associated with her, or that they'll be targeted. I was even nervous probably mentioning her name right now, because you never know. She was just so relentless. You just never know you never knew who she was going to target. And the drama continues for Sonia now, albeit in Limerick prison, where she is currently on hunger strike. So when referencing the hunger strike in court, Judge Catherine Stain said that she refused to be manipulated by the actions of a woman capable of extreme manipulation.
Wow. Wow.
So yeah, she's currently serving a 3-year sentence, with the third suspended for harassment of a man and a woman. And more recently she had that other jail sentence. So a psychologist's report found her to have a borderline personality disorder, where she was emotionally dysregulated, often oscillating between cheerfulness and hostility. And there's even 1 or 2 victims that say that they hope that she gets the support that she needs, which is very forgiving, really. It was something that Laura mentioned to me. She said, I really hope that she does. This is somebody who's committed an awful crime, and who also needs help. And
God knows, by the way, how many other victims are out there of her that just never came forward. I mean, maybe some of the more minor stuff. But I mean, it does look like she was living separate lives. As you mentioned, she had a personality disorder. Maybe she was living separate lives and genuinely convinced herself that she was all these people that she was pretending to impersonate. It's an incredible story.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? With lies, you wonder if people get
so wrapped up in the lies, they start to believe their own lies. You know what I mean? I mean, it's incredible.
There was one stage in court. I think that was the first court case where she pled guilty, and then she went home and posted on Facebook that she only pled guilty for the sake of her children. So
wow,
it's that's determination. You think of that determination, and if it could have been channeled into something,
but surely,
like a
surely
novel,
she should have known that would have been brought back up in court again if she was posting on social media in relation to a particular case. Anyway, a shocking story. And thankfully we do have good legislation, robust legislation around stalking now. So please don't get involved in it or harassing people. Now, a Native American studying in UCC, University College Cork, is strengthening Cork links with her tribe through opportunities both community feared might never be possible. I'm assuming her tribe in the United States. I'm assuming it's not in Europe or in Ireland.
Yeah, so it would be the Choctaw Nation, and there's a very definite, strong link between us with Cork and the Choctaw community in particular, and I'll tell you why. So Skylee Glass from Verdon in Oklahoma, she's preparing to head back to the US after completing a master's in applied psychology in UCC with the help of a Choctaw Ireland scholarship. So the initiative was introduced to acknowledge the generosity and humanitarianism displayed by the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma, who gifted funds to the Irish during famine times. So the donation arrived shortly after that infamous period of history known as the Trail of Tears, which saw ethnic cleansing result in the forced displacement of around 60,000 Native Americans in the southeastern United States in the 1800s. So an Irish chaplain at the time had sent a letter about the struggles of the Irish people. And it got around through word of mouth. They identified with the story, and they recognized and identified that with this oppression that we experience. Now, I'm not sure how many letters that Irish chaplain had sent out. Or
quite a lot, but the sounds of it, yeah.
Yeah, he put it out to the universe. And would you believe that they got back and they they sent a sizable donation, and this was shortly after their own struggles.
Hmm.
It doesn't say how much, but it was sizable nonetheless. So we've never forgotten that, so much so that we have that scholarship in place. And there's also a monument in Middleton known as the Kindred Spirit Sculpture. It now pays testament to that incredible gesture. So Skyly Glass, she said she had just the most incredible experience in Cork. She was raised by her father, who was a single parent, and he always had these really big dreams for her.
Hmm.
So they learned a lot about the different Choctaw beliefs. And she said when you compare ours to other cultures, the Choctaw culture would be very, very strong. So racism was very much a thing for her dad when he was a child, and he experienced a lot of it growing up, and he wanted better for his children. So they feel she's really looking forward to graduating so she can take her dad to Cork and show him all the places she's seen. And
I find the Native American tribes and that whole culture extremely intriguing, to be honest with you. You know, maybe I'm basing it on the stereotypes that I see on television, but I just find that the leaders of these tribes, they seem to be so wise in the things that they say and the way they do things. Okay, it's very, very different to the way a modern world works, but I just find it intriguing to listen to them and the knowledge that they have. Kind of very wise and common sense knowledge.
Yeah, and very open-minded like ourselves. That was because I spoke to two students from the Choctaw community, and they both said that we have the same thing going for us, where we say hello to people on the street that we don't know, or we strike up a conversation.
It's a very Irish thing to do, isn't it? Yeah. I remember some time ago, this woman was giving out to me about people coming to Ireland from other countries, and she said, they're not the same as us. And I said, what do you mean? She said, I was in the bank the other day, and there was one of those fellas, I think he might have been from Africa, and I said hello to him, and he just ignored me. And I said, but I said, maybe that's just a cultural thing. I said, you do realise it's quite unique that we say hello to complete strangers. I said, it's not something they do in every country in the world. You think he would have said hello to me anyway, wouldn't you? I go,
yeah.
So another story on a sadder note, and it's always sad to hear about children who are unwell. An 11-year-old Cork girl is set to undergo a very rare surgery, and it's hoped it'll prolong her life. What's wrong with the poor little mite?
Yeah, so this is an article by Anne Murphy in the Irish Examiner. So Cork girl Lexi O'Riordan, she's only 11 and she's from Ballyvlan. So she travelled to King's College Hospital in London last week to undergo a series of tests in an assessment to establish if she will be able to undergo a very rare surgery. So Lexi is currently the only person in Ireland known to have something called microvillus inclusion disease, MID. So it's a genetic disease that claimed the life of her sister Holly at the age of 13 months in 2005. So she died of liver failure before she could get a transplant. So MID is an extremely rare intestinal disorder that results in the intestinal wall not being properly or adequately developed, and it means that Lexi is fed through a line for 17 hours every day, and she's currently doing well, but this treatment would, or this transplant would really prolong her life. So the family has been told that the transplant procedure could take between 7 and 9 hours, with a 3-month recovery in England afterwards. So this will be for a small intestine and colon transplant. I've never heard of anybody having that before, but maybe that's my own naivety. I'm not sure.
Well, I've never heard of it before either, so it's my naivety too. It's incredible what surgery they can do nowadays. It's just incredible.
And to think that the improvements this will make to her quality of life, because it's hoped that Lexi will be able to eat normally following the transplant. So it's something she can't currently do. And her mum, Sylvia, says that she licks for flavor, like say chili heat wave Doritos and soy sauce and prawn
no.
crackers, and swallowing will be a huge thing after the operation. It's something she hasn't got to experience, and she'll be learning to eat at 11 years old. Can you imagine getting to know all those pleasures
Absolutely.
at that age, and thinking about what you've missed out on all those years?
Well, that'd be great. It'll be absolutely great, and hopefully she pulls through, and hopefully she gets her life prolonged the way it should. Now, Echoes of Our Past by Richard Forrest. In the Echo details a very disturbing story that made the news this time 100 years ago. Now, I love these old stories, particularly the one about the woman who was kidnapped to have her haircut that you talked about 2 weeks ago. But I mean, so this is also 100 years ago. So what was this one about?
Yeah, so we talk about crimes and how, there was never any crime back then, but it seems that back then you weren't even safe from your wife. I jest here, of course, but Sergeant
You
James
might not still be
Conway
safe from her nowadays as well, to be honest with you.
No, that's true. So Sergeant James Conway of the 40th Infantry Battalion was accidentally shot at home on Clancy Street, Fermoy. That was the report from the Echo 100 years ago. So the deceased was lying on the bed prior to going on duty, and his wife was making the tea for him. It's funny the way they say that tea in the newspaper back then, which they make the tea for him. They're making the tea for him. You could really hear them speaking.
Yeah.
So she casually took up his revolver. She was just putting it away or tidying everything up.
Sure she was, yeah. Yeah, go on.
Which had previously been unloaded. And believing this to still be the case, she pulled the trigger and she shot him in the head.
Wow.
So what's even more tragic is they were married only 3 weeks and were said to be very happy. And the deceased was only 23 years old. And at the inquest, it was stated by a military officer that Sergeant Conway should not have had the revolver in his possession, but it appeared he had captured it in Youghal and retained it. And this is just a really short article, but
I'm struggling here to find out how this happened by accident, by the way. In their naivety 100 years ago, they've just written it off. But so she picked it up and then she thought, well, it's just not loaded anyway, so I'll point it at him and pull the trigger. I mean, really? I mean, if you found a gun in your house tomorrow, would you pick it up? And even if you thought it wasn't loaded, would you point it at somebody and pull the trigger?
Is it one of those things that they just sweep under the carpet?
Like, can I just let her away with it, like?
Yeah, and there's nothing. What's crazy about these articles, I'd be comparing them to today's standards, and there's nothing about anybody in the community saying, "Oh, this is awful. James was lovely." It's just basically, "Oh, he shouldn't have had a revolver in his possession."
It's his fault.
It's
his own fault.
Like these days, we'll be dying to jump on the bandwagon and say, "I know him and we loved him and this is awful."
Yeah, she'll be all over social media. I know her. Yeah. She's a first class shot. She shot guns before that one. Anyway.
Yeah. Imagine if it
a shocking story nonetheless, but I find it just a bit suspect, to be honest with you.
I wonder how her life played out after that.
Yeah.
Like, did she remarry? I'd love if
did
they
she
had
ever
done
admit,
some kind of a follow-up.
60 years later, did she ever turn around and say just before she died, "Oh, by the way, I did actually shoot my husband. He deserved it," or something? I don't know.
Your last words. You could build a whole story around it, couldn't you?
Yeah, good, yeah.
Fill in the gaps yourself. But anyway.
Okay, and finally, West Cork residents are flogging a dead horse, or in this case, it seems a dead cow, with an issue that they can't seem to deal with. So what are they are they actually flogging a dead cow?
So this dead cow has been lying in the River Island near Skibbereen since at least April 13th.
God bless it.
They've no idea where it came from. It was spotted on the estate by a local out walking who said initially he thought it was a piece of large river foam. So he looked closer and it was a dead cow. And after getting home, he asked his mother what to do about it, and they called a farmer friend. However, the man told the Southern Star that nothing has happened since, and the cow's rotting carcass is still in the river. So this is believed to be a major health and safety.
Well, it is a health and safety issue, of course, if it's rotting in the water, because the stream then goes into the groundwater, which in turn goes into the reservoir. So it is a bit of a health hazard. It's a pretty hard
thing to ignore, isn't it?
Yeah, a large cow.
And you wonder how it got there, but
Well, I'm
The
sure he did.
locals
I'm sure it
believe that-
wasn't going for an afternoon dip. You know what I mean? It probably just fell in or tripped or
I
something.
know. I'd say it was. I'd say that's exactly what happened. I was going, yeah. It was
I think I'll go in and
mystery
just.
solved. Yeah.
I think I'm just going to have an old bath here. You know?
That's it. So the
Can cows
locals.
swim? I wonder.
I wonder.
Horses can. I know horses can swim, but I don't know about cows. I've never seen a cow swimming or a pig swimming.
They seem to like. I don't know what about cows, but they don't seem to have a tack of sense, do they?
No.
I don't know what.
I know pigs are very clever, but I don't know about cows. I'm not too sure about it.
Yeah.
Your average cow.
Well, yeah. So I don't know where to go from here. Sorry.
He certainly, when he went into the river, he wasn't moving.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't moving. I would
No,
say it's
moo,
better cow
moo,
punch for you.
moo,
No, I get
moving.
it. I get it.
I'm just saying.
Moving.
Sorry.
No,
Yeah.
moving.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
but the locals believe that all that's needed is for someone to throw a rope over it to drag it out of the river, and
Sure, it's
they've-
quite big, but I mean, it's probably you'd need a few locals, wouldn't you?
Oh, you would, yeah. I'm probably thinking in cartoon terms. That's like how it would happen in a cartoon. You just throw a rope around it and everything happens so easily. But
I'm not going to be the one to get in the river and tie the rope around it while it's rotting in the river.
I know. That's someone has to do it though. They've been on to the Environmental Protection Agency, and they said it was a matter for Cork County Council. Cork County Council and the Department of Agriculture had not responded at the time of the Southern Star going to print. So I wonder just what they're going to do. Like cows are so awkward, aren't they? How are they going to move it? I'm worried about this.
I mean, yeah, cows are so awkward. What? They're large animals, aren't they? I suppose
They're large. These are the kind of things that keep me up at night. Anyway. Are
I'm
these
sure
the
they
things
do.
that keep you up at night?
No, it doesn't keep me up at night. I won't be thinking about this cow after the conversation we had today. I definitely won't be thinking about it actually after the conversation we had today. Apart from, I might be wondering how we got in there. Rightly so.
Yeah, no, that's what got me thinking. Yeah, when I read the article.
You've an inquisitive mind, Sarah. You've an inquisitive mind, Sarah. Listen, lovely talking to you again. I love your inquisitive mind. Thank you very much indeed, and I appreciate you coming on the air tonight.
Thank you.